Hello, and welcome to the Ohio Partnerships for Success Grant Program. Today we will be going through Module 3, Entering Survey Data into Excel. My name is Katherine Kemp, and I'm an undergraduate research scholar at the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs at Ohio University in Athens. I have been a part of instructional programs in the past, and I'm excited to take you through all of the steps and materials associated with the Young Adult Community Member Survey. This module, Module 3, is the third in a series of 4 modules designed to help community organizations collect, analyze, and report data using the Young Adult Community Member Survey. Module 3 will explain how to enter data from completed surveys into an Excel database file. After completing this module, you will move on to Module 4, which focuses on opening, printing, and reviewing the report tables that are generated from the data you enter. In Module 2, the Young Adult Community Member Surveys measures were outlined, and 3 steps were given in order to make plans prior to survey administration, administer the survey, and collect and organize completed surveys. Key steps included schedule 20 minutes for participants to take the survey, make sure space is available that allows for privacy, print surveys prior to administration, prepare a large envelope or survey collection box, introduce the survey to participants, hand out the survey and read the instructions, answer participants' questions following the guidelines given to you, collect all completed surveys, and place the completed surveys in a large envelope with administration details on the outside. There are 3 steps involved in correctly entering survey data into Excel. Step 1 is prepare the surveys. There is only one action you must take in Step 1. That action is number the surveys and keep them organized. Before you begin entering any data, number each survey starting with 1 in the lower right-hand corner of the survey. There is a box located in this area that contains 4 spaces for digits. It is called the FID box. This preparative numbering step is extremely important to ensure that all future steps are organized and accurate. When numbering different groups of surveys, make sure to pick up with the last number you used in the previous group. For example, if the first group of surveys ended with survey number 23, start the second group of surveys with number 24. It's also recommended that you do not number the surveys prior to administration. Waiting to number surveys until they are completed and collected allows for better organization and consistent numbering from group to group. Next is Step 2, prepare for data entry. The first action you must take within Step 2 is do not wait long spans of time before you enter the data from the surveys. This is necessary because sound data analysis and data reporting requires current data. Do not wait to start data entry. The second action within Step 2 is set aside a block of time to enter the data. It is best to enter data when you have a block of time during which you are not likely to be interrupted. It may also be helpful to take short breaks during the data entry process to avoid fatigue and/or loss of concentration. It is recommended that you take a break after completing between 5 and 7 surveys. The third action you must take within Step 2 is have the completed surveys and survey codebook in front of you before you start entering data. You will need to have the survey and codebook in front of you during the entire data entry process. The codebook looks exactly like the survey itself, but includes numeric codes for each response that correspond to the Excel database file. The codebook is at the end of the Module 3 manual and is also available as a standalone document that can be printed. The fourth and final action needed for Step 2 is open the Excel database template and resave the file for data entry. Open the Excel template and resave it to use as your own entry file. You might name the file with the elements shown at the bottom of this slide. You can use your own system to name the data files, however, the naming strategy should be consistent. After resaving the Excel template for the first time, you will need to resave the file with the new date every time you add a new group of surveys. The data from the previous group or groups should remain in the file. You will just need to add the new data. This resaving step is done to create a save record. A save record will ensure that all data can be traced back to its original entry and one data file is not holding all data. Rule number 1 of data entry is not to save all data in the same place. See below for an example of a folder that contains multiple resaved Excel database files. The screenshot on this slide shows a folder that contains multiple Save As documents with their dates. After saving as for numerous groups, you will have numerous data files. It may be helpful to create an old versions folder to keep your most current files separate from your older files. Regardless, make sure file organization is consistent and understood by you. If you are unsure how to perform the Save As function on your computer, refer to the Module 3 manual and access the link provided for instructions. Step 3 is the final step in Module 3. Step 3 focuses on entering data, verifying data, and saving the data file. You enter data while referring to the codebook. We will now go through the steps of data entry, but please note that these instructions are assuming that this is your very first set of data entry. If this is not your first set of data entry, the instructions will vary slightly. First, open the data file you saved for your most current group of surveys. Since it is assumed that this is your first time entering data, open the file you saved with today's date, for example, 4/24/18. I will now go through a few examples on how to enter the data. It will be helpful to follow along with the codebook and Excel database file in front of you. Looking at the first completed survey, the one which you labeled as 1 in the lower right-hand corner, start entering codes referring to the codebook for the responses to the survey items for survey number 1. You should start entering numerical values starting in column B, row 2. If you have the database in front of you, you will see that column A, row 2, contains a label, Q1. Example 1. If the participant who filled out survey 1 wrote Alan for Q1, you will type Alan in column B, row 2. After you type Alan, hit enter on the keyboard. This moves you to the next row in the same column. Example 2. If the participant who filled out survey 1 selected male for Q3, you will type a 1 in column B, row 4, and hit enter to continue down the column and fill in the rest of the participants' responses. Continue through survey 1, entering the numbers from the codebook that correspond to the responses the participant gave for each question, and then continue the same process going through each of the surveys in turn. If you enter a numerical value for a question and an error message pops up, double-check the value you are trying to input. This error box is pre-programmed to help ensure that you always enter values that correspond to the codebook. This data entry process may seem confusing at first, but after some time, it will get easier and more intuitive. Please note, the location of data collection does not need to be entered for each group of surveys. The location information used to label the envelopes is strictly for your organizational purposes. When entering data, save your data file multiple times. Save the file again after you have entered all data from the entire group of surveys. Lastly, verify and save the final data file. After you have completed the data entry and saved the file for a final time, you should have another staff person who did not do the initial data entry go through the rest of the surveys to verify what was entered. This person should do the following. Open the data entry file and have the completed surveys and codebook in front of them. Go through every fourth survey and compare the responses on the survey with the numerical values in the data entry file. Make any needed corrections and keep track of what corrections were made. Save the final data file and review the corrections that were made to the data with you or the staff person who initially entered the data. Going through this process should help reveal things that need attention to help make the data entry process more accurate. Once the data has been reviewed and corrected, the data entry process is complete. Remember, however, that this entire process must be completed with each new set of data that is collected. Because participants do not always adhere to the survey instructions nor mark the survey correctly, here are a few additional guidelines for data entry. If a survey item has no response filled in, leave the corresponding cell blank in the Excel data file. If a person placed a mark between two circles or somewhere outside of the circle, leave the corresponding cell blank. Thank you for your time today as we went through Module 3, entering survey data into Excel. This module was designed to help you understand how to enter data from completed surveys into an Excel database file. Feel free to watch this webinar again or consult the Module 3 manual at any time to refresh your memory. The remaining module in this webinar series will provide the knowledge and tools to analyze the data and report the results.